Hello, and welcome to the Strength Catalyst, the podcast where we help people better understand and leverage their strengths in their work, in their life, and in their leadership. And I'm your host, Colleen. I'm an executive coach and a strength strategist, and I've got over 20 years of experience helping individuals and teams and family members and friends fully tap into their strengths so that they can grow with intention and really lead day to day with real authenticity and energy. And in each episode, I sit down with a nonprofit leader or change maker to explore how their unique strengths can help them navigate the real challenges and exciting opportunities they face in their roles as heads of these nonprofits. And each of these conversations is unscripted and strengths-based, designed to offer my guests insight, encouragement, and hopefully a little inspiration for anyone who's listening and looking to bring their best self forward in their work and in their life. And today, you'll hear me have a coaching conversation with Lauren Schott-Baker. She's the founder and CEO of The Wonderfund, a Massachusetts nonprofit that supports children engaged in the state's child welfare system. Many of you from Massachusetts may also remember her as the former First Lady, serving alongside her husband, former Governor Charlie Baker, during his 2 terms in office. And during that time, Lauren took a really close, careful, thoughtful look at some of the state's greatest challenges and felt really called to get involved in the foster care system, work that ultimately led to the creation of the Wonderfund. Now, before our conversation, Lauren completed a strengths profile assessment, and we both have her results in front of us, as you'll hear us talk about how she uses her strengths as a leader. She shares how she leads with both heart and discipline. And together we'll talk about helping her staff tap into their own strengths. We talk about staying connected to purpose while delegating. And we talk about how unrealized strengths of Lauren's, like persistence and curiosity, can transform even fundraising into a deeply human act. I think you're going to find it really interesting. And at the end of the episode, I'll tell you how you can take your own strengths profile assessments. You can learn more about your own strengths. But for now, let's dive into this chat with Lauren. I'm extra thrilled today to have Lauren Schott-Baker with me today. Lauren, I calculated last night that I think we met about 25 years ago when both of us had just had our 3rd child and we were in our former careers trying to juggle the crazy world of advertising and being a working mom. But lucky for both of us, like we find ourselves now immersed in the service of nonprofit organizations. So everyone, Lauren is the founder and the CEO of The Wonderfund. And I'm going to let her tell us about how she and her team support children who are engaged in the child welfare system in the state of Massachusetts. But first, please share what you do at the Wonderfund and why you do it.
Well, thank you for having me. And it is such a thrill to be reconnected with you because I don't know if we're planning on revealing it, but aside from being a very good friend, you helped me, early in your coaching days by coaching me as I was going through this huge transition from being a full-time working mom to being a stay-at-home mom and full-time volunteer to trying to get back into or getting back into the workforce. You've been tremendously helpful to me. And I still keep my little notebook from whenever that was, 2007 or something. So thank you for helping me shape my future chapters of my professional life. So I really appreciate it. The latest chapter that I'm in is I am the founder and CEO of The Wonderfund, which is a private nonprofit here in Massachusetts that focuses exclusively on serving the 35,000 children who are engaged with the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. That's our state's child welfare system. These 35,000 kids are in every city in town. They're in your kids' classrooms, on their sports teams. You see them everywhere you go. And for these kids, life it's not normal. They look like normal kids, but they don't feel like normal kids because something really tough has happened in their family, or they wouldn't be engaged with the child welfare system. If you're engaged with the child welfare system, one, it was through no fault of your own. You're a child. And two, you've suffered some sort of trauma. So what the Wonderfund does is work hand in hand with the department to provide these kids with assistance in emergency situations and to enrich their lives and help try to give them back their childhood. So that means in an emergency situation, the Wonderfund will provide resources like clothing and hygiene kits of all types, a winter coat or a backpack full of new school supplies, things that kids need that when their family's in crisis, they might not have access to. Then we will make it possible for these kids to choose whatever extracurricular activity they want or need to do that will help them feel like a normal kid. And so we will write a grant. They choose what they want to do and we'll write a grant. And that's things like allowing a child to sign up for karate lessons and to take driver's ed or get their CDL truck driving license so that they can go and get a great job and make a living and become independent. And it's everything in between, field trips, prom dresses. We are really focused on understanding who these kids are and the trauma that they've experienced and the impact that that trauma can have. And everything we do, we work in partnership with the Department of Children and Families, so that child's social worker, and we do it in a trauma-informed way.
That is so impressive. I mean, the work that you do is so critically important, and I have so much respect for you and your team, dedicating your professional lives to this really, really important work. And I'm sure that every day there are challenges as a leader of the organization. So before this conversation, just so our listeners know, Lauren took the strengths profile assessment so that she could have in front of her and I could have in front of me a list of the strengths that she employs and how she employs them on a high level in her work. And you and I, Lauren, talked about a few different things that we could possibly talk about in terms of developing your leadership in this coaching conversation today. So let me know, where would you like to begin our conversation? What can we focus on that will help you be the most energized, authentic, effective leader that you want to be in your role?
I think this strengths finder is really interesting. As you describe it, Colleen, it's a tool. Well, how can I use this tool to spend more of my time building on the things that I'm good at? And is that the right thing to do? Or should I be looking at places that are not energizing to me or that I'm not good at and really work to improve in that area? I have a small team. I have 6 women on my team, and it's taken, this team has been built over 8 years. So it seems to be a really good team now. I think everybody seems to work well together. And what I want to do is make sure that each person on this team is feeling fulfilled and like they're growing, because I've noticed that when I can support them in the right ways, they become more productive and more creative, and that's good for the organization. Our goals are huge and we have a lot of kids to serve. And so the more creative and effective we can be as a whole, but then as individual contributors, the better off we're going to be. That's something that I think about a lot. And, what can I do as a leader to grow myself as a leader? I've never loved a job more. This is kind of it's a startup still. And so we try things and we fail and we pick ourselves up and we try again. I'm somebody who needs to feel the mission, and I tend to want to get into the nitty gritty of doing the work, packing the backpacks, writing all of the communications and all that kind of stuff. Because when I started it, I had to do everything. But I love the work because the nature of this nonprofit is we can't interact with the children we serve. We don't even know their names or where they are. That's part of the confidentiality that's built into this model. These children are highly protected. So we will learn occasionally, we'll learn their first name maybe, and we'll learn that they're 8 years old and they want to take karate lessons, or that, they're 18 years old and they still haven't gotten their driver's license, so we will learn that much and that's it. So actually doing the nitty gritty of the work is how I feel the mission. But now that I'm the CEO, I have to learn how to rise above that, delegate a lot of stuff and let people do their job and still find a way to stay connected to the mission and also the people, on the team. And if I can get that humming, the other side of this, which I think this might be helpful, is I do the bulk of the fundraising, right? So I am out in front of donors every day. I have a lot of money I have to raise every year. I feel really well supported by my team, but at the same time, a lot of this depends on me. How could I use my, the strengths that I have to be a better fundraiser?
I'm just
I threw a lot at you, Colleen.
No, that's great. I love this. I love it. So back on the comments you made or the observations you made at the beginning about, should I be focusing on the things that I'm not so good at? Should I be putting my energy into my strengths? Let me first establish for you and for our listeners that the science unequivocally tells us that putting our energies into our areas of weakness provide far less reward than putting the same amount of energy into our strengths. So while as a leader, and for any of us as professionals, it's important to have a wide variety of skills and strengths and to be as versatile as we can, given the changing situations that we always find ourselves in. Sometimes we can't tap ourselves for that as well as we can tap other people. But our opportunity to grow in our areas of weakness are most likely to be accomplished when we use our strengths to help compensate for those weaknesses. So anyway, I want to establish that, one, to respond to the comment that you make, but two, maybe use that as a foundation for thinking about. And you said, I've got a team that's highly energized, they're engaged. As you think about the members of your team, the more opportunities that you can continue to find to help them use their most energizing, strongest performing strengths. The science tells us that not only are we more creative when we're using our strengths, but we're more likely to achieve our goals, we're less stressed, our relationships are stronger, we feel much more resilient. As a matter of fact, when we're in situations when we can't use our strengths, and I bet you could think of situations for yourself in what I'm going to say, when we find situations where we know or we believe strongly that something should be done a certain way because our strength is just dying to come out of us, and we are not given that opportunity, we get so stressed because it's so logical to us to use our strengths in a given situation. How can you help yourself and the members of your team know their strengths as well as you know yours, and as well as they can know theirs, so that they are really thoughtful in how they're choosing to go about whatever it is that they're doing every day. One of the benefits of the strengths profile report that you have, I think, is the very last 2 pages of it is a strength dictionary. So it's all 60 strengths, and they are in alphabetical order in a simple 1-sentence description. One of the things that a lot of my clients do is they take that dictionary and just you've got 6 staff members, make a little chart for yourself, list the person's name, and then ask yourself, well, what are probably this person's most energizing realized strengths? Like what are each one of these people doing? What strengths are they using when they seem to be performing at their best, highly energized, and able to use that strength quite frequently? What do you think about that?
I think that's really interesting. And so what I was going to say is, short of giving them each this assessment to do for themselves, and, sharing with me if they want to, short of that, how would you ask somebody what their strengths are? Like you say a lot, what is energizing to you versus what is exhausting to you? Is that how you would get at the bigger pieces?
Absolutely. That was definitely one of the questions I would use, but I'd probably step a little bit farther back and ask them to tell you about something they've done. Let's just say it's on your one-on-one.
Yeah.
And maybe this is something you do every month in your one-on-ones. You say, what's something you did this month that went well for you, that was really energizing, and that you are proud of what it is and how you went about it. And they describe the thing that they did for that month. And maybe in their description, they're going to give you some sense of what their strengths were. But you might have to ask the secondary questions. What was it about that project that made it so satisfying for you? And it's in those kinds of probing questions they may say, well, I got to organize all these things. And, Lauren, I love organizing. And then so many people showed up at this particular event and they were so engaged and I was able to get them motivated. And I would hope that over the course of time, let's say you did this every month with them, that the two of you would begin to have a set of language, or a short or a long set of strengths that become the probable realized strengths that they have been consistently, energetically, successfully using over a period of time. That would be the way that I'd most go about it. And so it's identifying what the thing or things are, and then finding the common patterns, and then being able to label what the core strategy tools that they were using that enable the thing to go well.
Hi, I'm Shannon, Colleen's daughter and her business partner in developing a tool that inspires self-reflection, introspective strength cards. These are a set of 60 beautifully designed cards, each with an inspiring quote and a simple call to action to help you pause, reflect, and be more intentional in how you use your strengths each day. The idea is simple. Pull a card, read and reflect on the message, and use it to spark a fresh perspective. It's an easy, practical way to build confidence, deepen self-awareness, and bring your best self forward, one strength at a time. You can check them out and order your own deck at introspectivecards.com. Whether you use them personally, gift them to a friend, or bring them into your workplace, they're designed to help you reconnect with what energizes you. Again, that's introspectivecards.com. Your daily companions on a journey to authenticity and happiness.
This makes me so happy because it's very, it's tangible. And like I can do that. And in fact, I do sort of do that. I just recently, maybe 6 months ago, started doing monthly one-on-ones with each person on my team, but they are not about the to-do list. They're not about tasks. And what I've said to them is, this is like your personal professional development time. One of the questions that I always ask is, tell me about something that you did in the last month that you really enjoyed, and tell me about, this is a little more focused. So the way you put it, I'm going to try that for sure. But then the other thing I always say is, can you think of any examples over the past month where you felt like it was particularly challenging, or something that just didn't go right or didn't go the way you wanted it to? And like, sometimes if there's a barrier, what feels like a barrier to someone might not feel as much to a barrier to me, just because I'm older and I've been there.
I have an idea for you.
Yeah.
Just building on where we just were. If you could help them over time and yourself in those one-on-one conversations, begin to build that strength list, but by being really thoughtful about examining the successes that they've had, and perhaps even pulling that dictionary out, maybe every one-on-one say, well, tell me which of these strengths, of these 60 strengths, did you use this month or this project? So you begin to create that list. Then when they come to you and they've got some sort of challenge or frustration, you can pull that list out and say, well, which strength could you use to help solve that problem, or go back and talk to that person? Because as leaders and as human beings, we tend to help other people or give suggestions or advice to other people from our own strengths, because those are the tools in our toolkit that work well and come naturally to us. But of course, we don't all have the same tools. And the best way that I find, as a coach anyway, that I can help people is not by sharing with them things that I did when I was a manager or that my other client has tried and has worked for them. I take them right back to, let's think about, well, what strengths do you have and how could you approach it with your strengths? And the science behind the strengths tells us, Lauren, that when we use 4 or more of our strengths together in combination, that's when we're likely to get into that state of psychological flow. So I give that number 4 to you as perhaps sort of a goal to say to yourself or say to the individuals. And a lot of my clients do this, say to the person, right, well, what's one strength you could use to go back and talk to your manager about this? And maybe they'd say, well, I guess on the list we've accumulated the last couple of months, or on my strengths profile assessment, whatever, I know that action is one of my strengths. And then you say, well, what would it look like, Mary, for you to use your action strength? And she'd say, well, I'd probably plan this like tomorrow, because I think this is a hot topic and I should just talk about it while it's still fresh on both of our minds. Great. That sounds like a good step. What's another strength you could use, Mary? And she looks at the list that you've created together, and she says, well, I've got optimism as one of my strengths. Well, what would it look like if you would use your optimism? And she says, well, I'd probably do this and this, because when people start talking about their strengths, it's usually pretty obvious to them. And I will tell you with confidence that by the time the person gets to the 4th one you've prompted them on, or certainly the 3rd or 4th one, they are usually ready to go, because all of a sudden they see their way forward through their strengths with just the gentle questions and the opportunity you've had to point them back to the strengths that they have. But if the two of you determine in that conversation there's something that they don't have in their strength toolkit that's necessary, then the two of you put your heads together and figure out, all right, well, who can help you with that? Or what's another strength that will kind of help compensate for that weakness that's going to make this a little bit hard for you? That's another way for you to be thinking about how you can help people who come to you with challenges or frustrations.
I think that's so interesting. And so could you just repeat what you said? When you use 4 or more of your strengths,
you get into that state of psychological flow where you lose track of time, which hopefully makes sense, because if you're doing most things we do, they take multiple strengths to accomplish the thing. And if you're using one of your strengths that you're good at, that you get energy from, that you're able to perform well, it's like, okay, this is starting to feel good. And if you need a second strength to, let's just say you use your relationship deepening strength, getting the thing done because you're doing it with somebody else that you really want to invest in the relationship. And then you think, well, if we had a little creativity here, we'd come up with a better problem. So you're throwing in a little bit of your creativity strength, and all of a sudden you're getting even more engaged in this thing. And then you think to yourself, if we only had a plan, this would be so much stronger. So the two of you come up with a little plan. Now you're like, all right, I can really see my way forward. So that's what I want you to think about, is how can you help that person sort of pile their strengths on? Not so much so they get into that state of psychological flow, that would be nice, but just so that they feel as competent and confident and authentic as possible when they're going into something that might commonly feel a little burdensome or troublesome before they, as they're expressing it to you, before they've come up with their plan or their solution.
I think that's so interesting.
Oh, I love helping people, find ways to use their strengths, or help people that they, lead or manage use their strengths. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, the most important things that we have to approach our professional life and our personal life are the tools in our toolkit. And so to that end, maybe another suggestion I'd have for you is to take this report that you're looking at or any type of strengths assessment that anyone listening might have and put it somewhere where you can glance at it every day. Maybe before you start your day, you take that summary page of your strengths and you say, all right, well, what do I have on my agenda today? And what strengths do I want to be really thoughtful about how I use them? And on the report you're looking at, you see some of your strengths as being realized, meaning you are performing them well and getting energy from them right now and using them frequently. And you also see in front of you, Lauren, a list of strengths that you indicated when you filled the assessment out that you perform well and get energy from, but are using less. Maybe it's because you're not thinking about it. Maybe it's because you don't have a chance to use it. But either way, as I look at it, if you've got a set of strengths that you are good at, that give you energy and they're not being employed as much, what's the opportunity there? So again, looking at your strengths before you start your day, and particularly maybe looking at that list and asking yourself, well, what could it look like for me to weave some empathy into this meeting I have at 2:00? And then do a little reflection at the end of the day, like what went well. Let me just think about what of all the things I did today, what went particularly well, felt energizing. Let me look at my strength list. That went well because I got to use my optimism and a little bit of my service, and I used a lot more of my curiosity. And then if you start doing that sort of observation of yourself using your strengths over time for a period of time, then these tools in your toolkit, especially the ones that you're not using as often, will become much more top of mind. And then the people that you lead are going to have the most strategic version of you because you're going to be using all these tools more intentionally and more wisely.
I think that's really interesting. So can we look at some of my unrealized strengths? I mean, some of them are like obvious to me. So look at these and so, say it's like the first thing in the morning and I want to look at these things and think about how could I make better use of these unrealized strengths today. One of the things is time optimizer. I love to like plan out my day and get a lot of stuff done because I've planned it out and I've made the best use of my own time. I love to do that. Do I do that every day? No. There are days when I get to a point when I'm like, I just don't want to do this project anymore, but it's not done, and so I'll daydream or I'll get up and walk around in my office and be like, wait a minute, go back and sit down and finish the thing, So
Yes. Such a common feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, just setting the intention at the beginning of the day, say, I'm going to really think about persistence is one of mine. That's just like the example I just gave you. You try to achieve success by keeping going, even when it's difficult. Right. I just don't want to spend any more time working on this particular project. So I'm going to go and suddenly find myself in the kitchen for no reason.
Yes. All right. So let me translate what you just suggested there, perhaps into some strengths language to see if we can use this tool and this way of thinking to help. So chances are, for most of us, when we are procrastinating, delaying the things that we know we need to get done, most of the time, those are activities that require our learned behaviors or, in other words, our draining strengths. Because we all have strengths that we're good at that give us energy, but we also all have strengths that we know we need to use and they're part of our job description. So what we want to do from a strengths perspective when we find ourselves in those situations where, let's just say, your adherence to all the rules that have to be accomplished to, do this budgeting thing or whatever, where necessity for you to be able to explain it to somebody the next day is just what's driving me to go back into the kitchen to get something else to drink. You do say to yourself, all right, well, which of my current realized strengths that I am using a lot, frequently, successfully, and or, as you're suggesting, which of the strengths that are unrealized, so that I'm not using as much, which of these can I pull into that hour that I've got to spend doing this draining project so that I reshape a little bit why I'm doing it or how I'm doing it. So that might be something as simple. You mentioned earlier that one of your strengths is mission. So maybe you have to remind yourself when you're in the kitchen getting that drink of water, all right, the mission of the Wonderfund is so critically important to me. And my mission of getting exercise at 6:00 tonight on yoga class is really important to me, that I have to get this done now. And so I walk back to my office. And then maybe take another glance at your list and you say, all right, well, what else is going to get me going here? I know I'm persistent. It's harder to be persistent on something I don't really enjoy doing, but I'm kind of proud of myself for being persistent
Right.
because I do get energy when I'm persistent and I feel like good when I finish that thing. All right, darn it, I'm going to put my persistence against this thing. And then you go back at your list again and you look at a third one and a fourth one. And it's like your strengths are like voices in your head, right? And so you're at all times listening to different voices. The one voice says, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go to the kitchen. Another voice says, oh, you should get this done. It's really important. It's just a question of which voices you're listening to. And I know you're doing that already. What I want to do is help you think about how you can make that much more intentional.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. And you know what makes me happy is there are places where I can say when you're talking, I'm like, yeah, I do that. I do think about that. I just don't do it. You know, to have the list up where you can see it and just glance at it and be like, oh yeah, right. I remember. A little reminder doesn't take any time. It doesn't require huge effort. It's just like, oh yeah.
All right. Before we finish today, let's go back to your second question. You know, you were asking before, I wonder if there are any strengths that I could use differently to be a better fundraiser. And I want to point you to your list of unrealized strengths, because if those are the strengths that in general that you have, that you perform well and get energy from, but aren't using as much, I wonder if there are any strengths in that list you're looking at that you could imagine adopting more regularly. So let me paraphrase a few of these for you just to get you thinking about them. So on the top of your unrealized strength is curiosity, and that's the strength that suggests that you like to ask questions. The second unrealized strength on your report is esteem builder, and that suggests that you really see the possibility and potential in people, and you really want to help them understand that because you believe that that's really going to help them build their self-confidence and achieve what they are capable of achieving. Persistence. You mentioned that one already, but that one feels like a little bit obvious to me. And the beautiful definition of this one suggests that you are quite good at continuing forward in the face of difficult challenges and frustrations, because you know deep down that success in the face of any type of adversity really requires that you take that extra effort. And then you've got a long list here, but let me highlight one other one because I want to make a comment about it, and that's your self-belief. So self-belief is the strength that you have that suggests that you can be quite confident and self-assured because you believe that if something is within your reach, raising more money, if you set your mind to it and you work hard, you're likely to achieve it. And not only does that self-belief help you, but it helps the people around you. It instills a level of confidence in them. So the more you use that self-belief, let's just say with your staff, the higher the likelihood is that they are going to feel confident in themselves because of being associated with you and seeing that in you. Let me take a back seat here and ask you, what do you think about those or anything else that you're looking at on your list as potential strengths for you to use in an enhanced way to help with fundraising?
I mean, the first thing is, hearing you define them is really helpful because the little blurbs that are under each one, they're helpful, but you're adding sort of meat on the bones to it is really helpful. I can look at a lot of these things and if we're focused on fundraising, right? Mm-hmm. Like the self-belief thing is, I know I can do it because I've done it before. And this combination of self-belief and persistence, for me personally, I think comes from growing up. I was a gymnast and it just never occurred to me until recently, which is weird, but it never occurred to me that other people didn't have the same experience that I did where In gymnastics, you had to learn a certain skill, how to do a back handspring on the balance beam. You have to learn how to do that if you want to get the points and whatever. But it's not easy. And so, you'd have to do it, I don't know, 100, 200 times a day.
Wow.
You just keep doing it and you fall off. For the first few times, you fall off every time and you risk hurting yourself. You fall off and you fall off, you get back up and you do it again and then you hit it. And it's like, oh my God, I can do it. Then you do it again, you fall off again. And you know that if you keep at it, your success rate will improve. You're not going to get it every time, but your success rate will improve. That builds the self-belief. Like, I know I can do it. But then if you take that and you focus it on fundraising, it's like that sales funnel to me. You've got to ask 100 people to get to a certain number of yeses. But then building into that, if with each new person you meet, you really ask a lot of questions and get to understand that person and what motivates them and what interests them from a philanthropic standpoint. You'll learn that they really love children. Well, if they really love children, maybe they'd really like to learn more about how they can help kids whose families are in crisis.
Right. And that just what you said, there are examples of your curiosity strength. You said asking them a lot of questions and then helping them figure out, sort of building their confidence around their ability to achieve their goals, their philanthropic goals, through being associated with the Wonderfund. So that's using your esteem builder strength.
Oh, see, I didn't even think of that.
It's something that's dawned on me. I don't know how what your reaction to this idea might be, but I wonder if you have any old pictures of yourself when you were a gymnast, and you put a little one right there next to your laptop, just as a reminder.
Right.
Like, you can look at these words in black and white on a piece of paper as a trigger to help you remember your strengths. But as you suggested before, the cards, like when you have something, a visual that reminds you of the strengths that you have, or times when you've been really successful, it is a little motivator to be using those, mindset or those strengths again. I saw a little vision of you flying through the air when you were describing that. And I thought, oh, well, snapshot of that. I guess, as a way to close this conversation, I'm curious for you to tell me and to tell our listeners, what are the strengths of the Wonderfund that would be really helpful for me as your friends and colleague, and for listeners to know as we are deepening our understanding of that really critically important nonprofit organization?
Oh, I love you. Thank you. What's magical about the Wonderfund is that we have a partnership with the Department of Children and Families, who are, the social workers who interact with the children and families in crisis every single day. And that relationship has been built over many years, and it's a very trusting, open relationship. And so because of that relationship, that partnership, the Wonderfund is able to really focus on these kids and what they need. And we are able to put the resources these kids need while they're engaged with DCF, which could be a couple of days. It could be a couple of years. It all depends, right? But we're able to do it without any red tape. So if a child needs a winter coat today, we can get them a winter coat today. Because we have created a business model that allows us to be present physically and virtually with every DCF social worker across the Commonwealth. And there are about 5,000 of them. We are there physically because in every office, we have a closet that we keep stocked with essential items, pajamas, socks, underwear, hygiene kits, that are specialized. We have period kits for girls or teens. We have specialized hair care kits for kids with textured hair, because the products that, are in the regular hygiene kits aren't great for textured hair. So we have all these different things that help a social worker cater to the specific needs of a specific child in the moment when they need it. And if there's something that's not in the closet, like we had a request for size 15 shoes the other day. The kid is a size 15 feet. And we're like, okay, well, we definitely don't have that. But we were able to connect and give the social worker a gift card so that she could take that kid to Foot Locker or whatever and get the right shoes, because the kid cares what shoes he wears. So those kinds of things, the way our model is structured allows us to be there to help kids in the moment when they need it, allowing kids to be able to choose an activity that is something that they're passionate about or curious about, or maybe it's just what their friends are doing. There are those kinds of things. The Wonderfund is able, through their social worker, to make it happen. And we have set up an online request form. So a social worker just goes on their phone or their laptop and fills out the form. It comes to us in minutes, and we're able to turn it around and get the check to the vendor or whatever it needs doing in a matter of days. That makes a difference for a kid. If you think about who these kids are, these kids are our future in Massachusetts. There are 35,000 kids who've suffered trauma. It's just every kid is a different case, and they are varying degrees of trauma. We know now, because of a lot of research, how to mitigate the impact of that trauma. And one of the most effective things we can do as outsiders is to provide positive childhood experiences and a high dosage of that, many of them stacked on top of each other, because each time, the child goes to karate and builds a relationship with their teacher, or they participate on a sports team, or they get to go and perform in a dance ensemble or something. Each time they have these things and they build toward them, they're building their own strengths and their ability to cope with whatever life throws at them. And they're building these kinds of things that I'm looking at in this in this assessment. They're building them for themselves, and they'll be able to draw on those going forward in life, so that they have a better shot, despite the trauma they've suffered, at reaching their highest potential. And that, knowing that, and seeing just the immediate joy on a kid's face when you give them the size 15 sneakers, or you get their driver's license, like those things, they seem like small things in the moment, but they have a huge impact on a child's life. If you want to get in and help make a huge difference for a child who really deserves to have their childhood back, we know what we do works, and we know how to do it. We need a lot of help to do it.
Thank you so much, because you've expressed that so beautifully, explained it so well. And I have so much respect, such a high regard for you for dedicating so much of your life and your intelligence so thoughtfully to this organization and to all the children and their families, I presume, that benefit from everything you've done. So thank you so much for sharing all that, for being vulnerable and being coached live today on this conversation. And I'm here. I'm always here for you to help you think any of these things through again.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it's so, I love spending time with you, and I love how you dissect things. It's really interesting, but it's also, it's something I need to do more for myself. And probably it's true for most women. I don't, maybe it's true for everybody, but take a minute, and it's okay to take a minute and really focus on yourself. And what's in all of this for me, and how can I get the most out of what I'm doing?
Right. Especially because what you're doing is serving the world. All right, Lauren, take good care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was really awesome.
What an inspiring conversation with Lauren Schott-Baker. I loved how she highlighted the power of using our strengths more intentionally, both for ourselves and for the people we lead. And if you'd like to learn about the Wonderfund and the impact they're having, you'll find a link in the show notes, along with information about the introspective strength cards, the business I have with my daughter, The cards are a really simple and creative way to build self-confidence and energy in your day. And also, you'll find a link to take your own strengths profile assessment. You can receive a simple summary of your top strengths for free, which is why I really encourage you to give this simple 20-minute online assessment a try. It's a wonderful way to better understand what energizes you and how to use your strengths more wisely. So, thank you for listening to the Strength Catalyst. And until next time, keep leaning into your strengths and using them with intention.